I'm going to give you just one example just to show you how we do a trade. I hope it's going to be helpful. Today is the 4th of June. We are considering a spot month, which is June. We are trading. June is called the spot month because we already that is the most nearest contract that we can trade. So the closing price, for argument's sake, is 1,850. Let me just go back a little bit and see what was the closing price, just to double check for June. But I took that as an example. We see here the closing price. Oh, sorry, Suns. Where's white maize? June white maize. It closed at 1,855. So it's pretty much close from my 1,850 that I took for the day. Okay, so that is the closing price, the contract price. But remember, the value would be that amount times 100, because we said one contract is equal to 100 tons. So 1,850 rand per ton multiplied by 100 tons gives you that as your exposure. And again, remember, we said that you need, for you to start to buy that one contract, you need to put in a margin of 12,500. Now, this value of 12,500 is being reviewed from month to month by the JSE itself, depending on where the price is trading at, and looking at the economic fundamentals, basically, to see whether we are at the right price or not. Both the seller and the buyer are required to put in a down payment. And then let's see what happens the next day. Say today, the following day, which is tomorrow, the price drops from 1850 to 1845. Now, what did we say? When we remember what we said about a long position and a short position. We said a short position would protect the owner of that position from rising prices. In other words, a farmer who doesn't want a farmer who doesn't want the price to fall actually would benefit in this case, because he locked in at a minimum of 1850. So anything that falls, he would be protected. So, and this is why you see that once the price moved from 50 to 45, the seller, who is now the farmer in this case, who is selling his maize, would then get 500, which is actually that 5 rand multiplied by 100. 5 rand per ton multiplied by 100 gives you that 500 that moves over from the buyer's account to the seller's account. Remember, this is a zero-sum game. So whatever the seller gains, the buyer loses. And that's how we move on. And you can see there, because the buyer had to give 500 away, but remember, he has to maintain his margin account at 500, he would be required to put in that 500 so that his account is level at that 12,500. So that's why you see here that the buyer put in a 500 there, but the seller gained 500. Following day, the price moved up from 45 to 47. As you can see, the direction flow moves in the opposite direction. So 200 moves away from the seller to the buyer in this case. No one is required to put an additional amount, because remember, he was already at 1,300, although the requirement is only 12,500. So he's okay. He can still continue without putting in additional funds, and so on and so forth. This is a Friday the 6th, so Monday the 9th, we see that the price drops. By the time the market opened on Monday, maybe there's some news over the weekend, either from international community or from international markets, that affected our price domestically, and we see that the price drops. And again, because it drops, the seller is protected from falling prices, so he gains. And again, you see the money flows from the buyer's account to the seller's account, and so forth, and so on and so forth. Interestingly here, you see that maybe something that I need to mention here is that you see that the buyer paid over 700, but he only paid in 500. I wish I could talk to you and say, why is that? That is because you see here that he had an extra 200 in excess, or surplus of 200, because His requirement is only this, but he already had 700 instead of 500. So that's why even though he's paid over 700 here, to bring back to 12,500, he's only required to pay in 500. And this kind of margining methodology is not done by you, the trader, or the client. It's done by the clearing bank. This is now the daily marking to the market that I alluded to earlier. So every day your clearing bank would look at who made money, who lost money, and they do the calculations, and they send you a paper or receipt just to say pay in 500 extra or you gain 500 extra. And you can see this can continue like this, and unfortunately my example is quite biased in favor of the seller, because he received 700, 2,000 and 1,000 here, because we see a consistent fall in price from 1850 to 1810.